Good day, folks, and welcome to the Victoria County Tourism Webinar Series. Your host is Tom Wilson. I'm pleased to present the fifth in a series of webinars to assist tourism operators to plan and prepare for the upcoming 2012 tourism season. Today's webinar is Understanding Your Web Presence. It's more than just a website. Our speaker today will be Terry Smith, President of Icon Communications and Research. So it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Terry Smith. Terry's an award-winning marketer with Icon Communications and Research. Over the past 15 years, he's been instrumental in the establishment of brands and marketing campaigns for the Celtic Colours International Festival, the Cape Breton Fabulous Foursome golf courses, now Golf Cape Breton, Cape Breton's Celtic Heart of North America Co-operative, Johnson & Johnson, Great Plains College, and many more. He's been recognized as a specialist in branding, as well as in e-marketing, and has been a feature speaker at Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador Annual Convention, Ecom Conference, Cape Breton Social Media Conference, and the Victoria County Tourism Conference. He's also a regular guest lecturer in marketing classes at CBU and at Acadia University's Get Connected program. It's now my pleasure to welcome Terry and ask him to begin his presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, and great to be with you all on this snowy day. There's nothing better to do anyway, I think. So yeah, as the title says, Understanding Your Web Presence, it's more than a website. What we're going to do is go through all of the various facets that make up a web presence in today's world. And as you'll see by the end of it, a website is only one part of that. It's an important part, but it's really only one part these days. There are so many other ways that a web presence is made up these days. So I'm going to ask Annette if you can go to the next slide. So to start off, what is a web presence? So as I mentioned, the most common thing that most people think of would be your website, but it's also social media channels. And as we go through, we'll see that that's not just what you are putting out there in social media, it's also what people are saying about you in social media. There are a number of directories that you could be displayed in. As well, there are a number of location-based and review services that are out there these days. As well, blogs, news articles, other posts, all can form your web presence. And basically, it's anything that a potential customer can find online that's going to help shape what their perception is of you. And just looking at the attendees, it looks like we have mainly people in the tourism industry, so it's good. I picked a good case study, and I just thought that for this presentation that we would just look at an operation as an example, and you can get a sense of what their web presence is like. And that operation that I've selected is Celtic Lodge, just because they've got a real mix of things that make up their web presence. So when you think about a customer that could be coming to your business, their starting point in many cases these days, in probably the vast majority of cases, will be to look at you on Google. So let's go to the next slide. And what I've done is I just did a Google search on the Celtic Lodge. And this is the screen that comes up on page 1. And so you can see there's a couple of ads, but fairly close to the top, Celtic Lodge's own website is there. To the right, you can see where it says Celtic Lodge directions. There's a map, and there's a number of photos there. That won't always come up for people doing searches, and I'll explain to you what you have to do to make that come up. You'd like for it to come up because it provides more information right off the bat to somebody searching. And if we go to the next slide, this is just a little bit further down the list on page 1 to some of the things that a customer would find searching for information on the Celtic Lodge. So signature resorts, they would find them there. There's a couple of links that go to TripAdvisor where they can read reviews. You know, third-hand information is very valuable these days for people trying to make a decision about businesses, because they see that as usually a fairly credible source of information. There's a Wikipedia entry, novascotia.com listing, and then if you go down the bottom, there's a news article. Their new general manager hopes to improve Celtic Lodge. So all of these things can shape how a potential customer will find out about Celtic Lodge, and then shape their perception. If we go to the next slide, this came up fairly close to the top of page number 2 on Google. So not everyone's going to go to page number 2. Many people will just be content to go to the first page of results and see what they can find there. But if they do go to page number 2, they could find things like this. And in this case, it's an article on the PC Caucus website that that has, I guess, a mixed message. There's an MLA who's making the case for greater support for the Celtic Lodge, but also mentions that it's in a state of disrepair. So things like that could be out there for anyone who is trying to manage their web presence. And you can't really control all of that, but you may be able to manage it a little bit. So let's go to the next slide. So Google Alerts just is a great way to kind of keep a pulse of what people are saying about your operation. It's just, as you can see, the website at the bottom of the screen there, google.com/alerts, and you can decide whatever the search query is. So I've placed Celtic Lodge in there. Result type, I'd suggest selecting everything. How often? Once a day. If it's your operation that you're keeping track of, you may want to get something once a day. It'll only send you an alert if something does indeed show up, and then you can say only the best results, or there's a few different variations, and then it sends that directly to your email address. And just to show you on the right-hand side there, the Google alert for today for Celtic Lodge. So there's an item, Cape Breton Resort hosts Mining Society of Nova Scotia. So they would know that that's out there. And then down a little bit farther on the web, iconic Cape Breton Resort, Celtic Lodge opens in June. So that would pop up in those alerts. But any news items, any new content that's been added on the web, any blog posts that mention Celtic Lodge will show up there, and some comments in social media. Google is trying to add more there to these alerts, but I don't think it really captures them all yet. But that'll give you a sense for your operation. You may also, if you've got a competitor out there who you want to keep an eye on, what people are saying about them, you may also want to set up an alert for your competitor to kind of keep track of that. So let's go to the next slide. So we'll start with the website, and let's go right to the next slide. So for the Celtic Lodge, they've got a very attractive website. It's a couple years old now, I believe, but what strikes you is, you see what the facility looks like. The photo down below, you see the amazing location they have. They do have some social media links integrated, so that's a good thing. The only thing that I would say about their website is when this was created a couple of years ago, people were concerned about the size of the screen resolution on your computer, that different people with older computers had lower resolution. And so what people did a couple of years ago was they tried to design websites kind of to fit the lowest common denominator. And that's what they've done here. And as you can see on my computer, you end up with a lot of black space on the right. And that's fine. I mean, I think people are accustomed to seeing things like that from time to time. But in the web world today, you can have sites designed so that they will actually provide maybe a background image so that you are filling up the whole screen for people with larger resolutions, and you are accommodating those with the lower resolutions. So anyway, that's just one little thing to think about. But when you look at your web presence, I just encourage you to look at how people will see your website on different types of browsers like Internet Explorer, or I'm using Safari on the Mac. Firefox is another one, Google Chrome, and just see what their experience is, and just make sure that you're providing a good presence out there. So let's go to the next slide. The other thing is, as you can see by the quote there, more people will access the internet by mobile device than PCs by 2013. And since many of you are in the tourism industry, this is what they will often be taking with them on their trips, and they'll be consulting it while they're on vacation, where they may leave their computer at home. So it's very important to understand what your presence is going to be on the mobile device. As you can see there on the left, that's just a screen capture from the Celtic Lodge website and how it appears on an iPhone. So again, you get the black bar on the side, and again, it's fine with an iPhone. Users are used to seeing things on a smaller screen, but the only thing is, when you have limited space to work with on that small screen, having that empty black space is not really utilizing all of the real estate that you have available to you. So anyway, it's just something to think about. On the right-hand side there, I just provided an example, Domino's Pizza. What some companies do, there is a cost to it, is they develop a website that is optimized for mobile devices. And so it will be able to detect if this person is coming to my website from a smartphone. It will automatically send them to the mobile version of the website rather than the regular version. And so that's something that you could look at. There's usually a cost to having that set up. And in this case, Domino's has something that as you can see, it doesn't have a lot of small text. So that's something you could look at. You could look at mobile apps as well. That usually is getting you to a little bit more pricier territory too. So it's not a necessary thing, but I just want to make you aware that those options are out there. So let's go to the next slide. So another part of the web presence is social media. And we'll go to the next slide. And for Celtic Lodge, they're actually fairly active in social media. So they've got a Facebook page, and as you can see there, they've got over 900 people that like their page. They've got some attractive photos. And if you did scroll down on that page, you would be able to see that there are people that have made comments, and they're responding to those comments. They're sharing information that other people have said about Celtic Lodge on that page, and so they are interacting. They're having a conversation. So that's a really good thing that you want to see with the social media presence. Let's go to the next slide. So they also have a Twitter account, and this is just their Twitter profile page. And just the point I wanted to make about the screen resolutions when we're talking about the websites, Twitter actually does this so that The content in the middle, that will be optimized so that somebody with a lower resolution will only see what's in the white, but somebody with a higher resolution will see some of that background, more of that background image. So anyway, that was just a side point that's something that is possible these days. As you can see, they've got a Twitter account, and when you look at the tweets that they have down there, they've been tweeting within the last 24 hours, and it looks that they're tweeting fairly regularly, retweeting some things that people have said, and engaging in some conversation. So that's good to see. Let's go to the next slide. They also have a YouTube channel, and in this one, it's set up, as you can see on the right-hand side in the gray. It says created by the Celtic Nova Scotia. So they haven't used the words Celtic Lodge in their YouTube username. They've decided to go with Celtic Nova Scotia. I would encourage you to use actually whatever your business name is or thereabouts. They'll have a limit on how many characters you can put in your username, but think about what people might search for and get it as close to that as you can. And as you can see, just below the username, it says latest activity was November 15th, 2010. So they've gone over a year without posting any new content on this YouTube channel. They do have 735 video views, which is okay, but as I'll show you in a second, it's not that great. And then they've got a couple of different videos posted about different experiences. So let's go to the next slide. This is what happens when you search for Celtic Lodge on YouTube. The first video that comes up there, we'll go to the next slide. It says Celtic Lodge Resort and Spa Video Tour. This is from back in 2008, so it's about 3.5 years ago it was posted. And when you look at that video, it's just photos, kind of a photo slideshow that's narrated, and a lot of the photos look really dated. They're not clear and crisp, and so personally, I'm not sure if that was something that the Celtic Lodge did themselves or just somebody else posted up there. It's not something that was from their YouTube channel, but personally, it doesn't really provide a really good representation of their operation. So let's go back one slide. The other things that people would find in the search results with videos 2 and 3, Celtic Lodge or Hey There Jim Melvin, what these appear to be is videos that were uploaded by the staff working at the Celtic Lodge. That is kind of a behind-the-scenes look, and you really have to wonder if there are things that are in there that you want visitors to see. So you may want to keep an eye on what staff are doing and ensuring that they're not posting any content that could be embarrassing to you. And then there's one entering Celtic Lodge, which is not a bad video, posted by somebody who's visited there. And then down the bottom there, what to do when you're bored at Celtic Lodge. So that doesn't necessarily send the right message either. It's somebody going down a slide at the lodge. But you can't always control what people are going to say or post, and it's in how you respond to that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more near the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead. One more. Flickr is another social media channel that people use that is used for photo sharing, and there are, as you can see from here, there are some absolutely stunning photos of Celtic Lodge there, so that's great to see. They may want to keep track of what's going on in Flickr and point people to that from their Facebook page or from Twitter to direct people to some of the stunning photography that's on there. They may even want to start their own Flickr account and connect that to their website. So that's an option that people have. Let's go to the next one. As I mentioned, that Google Alerts may not always provide all of the conversation, and where I find they don't provide a lot of conversation is what people are saying on Twitter. This is a tool that I use called Hootsuite. And for anyone that's using Twitter, you may be familiar with Hootsuite, or there's also TweetDeck, and there's a few other services. But these basically give you a way to comb through the content and the conversations that people are having on Twitter about you, so that you can listen in and find out what's being said and then respond. And so what I've done is I just set up 2 streams where I did a search for Celtic Lodge, so anybody talking about Celtic Lodge, where they would use those words. And then the second one, as you can see, where it says @Celtic Lodge, that's the Celtic Lodge Twitter name. So I put another stream for anybody who's mentioning their actual Twitter username there, so you can kind of get a sense of what's being said and how Celtic Lodge is responding. So if you go down on the left-hand column, 3 down, you can see past photography, where it was tweeted actually, and it was actually by Facebook. I posted 17 photos on Facebook in the album Moose Out Our Front Door, Celtic Lodge, and then it provides you a link to the Facebook album. And then on the right-hand side, about 4 down, it was actually tweeted by Past Photography as well, and Celtic Lodge saw that and retweeted. Check out these wowza close personal moose shots just taken out my door, and then it's actually been retweeted by a couple other people as well. So that ensures that the conversation is happening, that the information is being shared out there. So it's really good if you have the time to be able to listen in on things like that, to find out what people are saying about you. And when there are things that are positive, like those great photos of the moose at Celtic Lodge, you can respond and share that, and hopefully other people will share it. Or if there's somebody saying that something that's less than flattering, you can also respond to that, and respond in a diplomatic way. So it's not just somebody providing one side of the story, that you get a chance to provide your side of the story as well. So let's go on to the next slide. Directories are another option that form your web presence. Let's go to the next one. So in the case of Celtic Lodge, I'll just provide a couple of examples, but on novascotia.com, the Nova Scotia Tourism website, they've got a profile there. Let's go to the next one. On the local experienceingenish.com website, they've got a profile there, so people may find them through that. Let's go to the next one. Taste of Nova Scotia, they're a member there, and so they would have a profile on that site, and that's another way for people to find them or to learn more about Celtic Lodge. Let's go to the next one. Oh, sorry. Let's go back just one. And the only other comment I wanted to make there, it might be, if you're in tourism, it might be Canada Select, Bed and Breakfast Association website. There could be a number of different directory sites that it could be a Chamber of Commerce site where you may have a presence. And just take a look at what your presence is. Ensure that it really is a good representation of the of what your customer will want to see, that will help them make the decision to give you their business. And the other thing I would encourage you to take a look at is to make sure that there are some keywords that customers might search in Google for that are built into that those profiles as much as possible. So, for Celtic Lodge, I would think that they would want to ensure Ingonish, um, Cavatrail. There are keywords like that, like Ingonish accommodations, Cavatrail accommodations, dining, those sorts of keywords that people might be looking for to find them. So build those in. Okay, let's go to the next one. Another part of your web presence is location-based or review sites. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what these would be. Let's go to the next slide. So the biggest one, I think, would be Google Places that many people should be concerned about. So if you did a search for Celtic Lodge in Google, and then you clicked where you can see the web, or you can look at images, or you can look at video, if you clicked on the map option in the search results, or the Places option, you could be taken to this listing. And so Celtic Lodge, if you look up in the top right-hand corner, it says Owner Verified Listing. That means that they have claimed their listing through Google Places, and they've added some photos, they've added a little bit of content. There's some other photos that have been added by other users online, and it just means that they're going to have a little bit more presence, a little bit more control over what their presence is when people find them through this avenue. And there are also reviews there, and so it's good to know what people are saying about you. So if you go and search for your operation and say in Google Maps, look at the top right. If you haven't verified or claimed your listing, I'd encourage you to do so. Let's go to the next one. Yellow Pages is another one. Any business that is listed in the Yellow Pages will show up in their directory, and people use this. I personally use Yellow Pages a lot with my smartphone to look for phone numbers for things. So it's just something to be concerned about. For Celtic Lodge, they have a fairly basic Yellow Page listing. So when you come to what their presence looks like on the Yellow Pages site, it's fairly modest. I'll just give you another example if we go to the next one of City Printers, a company here in Sydney that I know. Now this is a paid service that they've paid for. I think they pay so much a month to Yellow Pages, but as you can see, there's a lot more information: hours of operation, methods of payment, products and services. It shows their location on the map on the right. There are tabs there where you can see, if you see in the yellow, it says details. And to the right of that video, if you were there and clicked on that, you'd see that there's a little video profile of them there, reviews as well. So that's something that may not be necessary for everyone, but if you've got a business that people will be looking in the Yellow Pages to try to find, more and more people are going to be doing that online. So it's something to think about. Let's go to the next one. Yelp is another service that many people use that's location-based, and in this case, the Celtic Lodge does have a profile on Yelp, and I would encourage you as well, go to yelp.ca and sign up and just put in a profile there. And what will happen is, for example, if somebody is searching for accommodations or restaurants using Yelp, I was actually in Quebec City about a year and a half ago, and used Yelp to find restaurants, and made my decision based on what people were saying there, because there were quite a few reviews and a number of restaurants listed. So this is something that people are using out there. So it's important to look at what your presence is and then try to build it. Happy happy visitors to or customers to give you reviews, whether it's on Yelp or TripAdvisor or other services. So let's go to the next one. And this is TripAdvisor. So anyone in the tourism industry would certainly be well aware of what TripAdvisor, I think, has for their profile. So just something to be aware of. But at this point, because there are a number of reviews, whether it's in Yelp, Google, more and more people are posting reviews, but TripAdvisor especially, this one is very active for people in the tourism industry. As you can see, there's 213 reviews from the community for the Celtic Lodge. So, so this is just a critique that somebody had fairly recently on TripAdvisor about Celtic Lodge, and as you can see, they said it was dated and overpriced. They did give it 3 stars, so it wasn't totally bad, but they speak about the location was great, but did have some concerns. And as you can see below, the management at the Celtic Lodge did respond to this review and was very diplomatic and provided a good response. And I think when a potential customer comes to any review, if you do respond and you apologize and are sincere and basically say that you're addressing it or you're going to even if you disagree with it, if you respond in a very diplomatic way, I think that's a good way to show you a little bit more of the conversation. So any visitors that are coming to one of these sites, they'll see that there may have been a critique, but there may have also been another side to the story, and people weigh both sides of that, I think, when they're making up their minds. So let's go to the next slide. Another service. This is also location-based, actually, and it's sort of social media. It's a location-based social media site that has reviews, so it kind of encompasses a number of different elements. It's called Foursquare, and people check in at different locations and provide comments. And if you look down there, it says that lodge is way overpriced for what you get. My tip would be find something in Quebec. So not really flattering. It doesn't appear that Celtic Lodge is active on there and responding. So anyway, just it's not used by a lot of people like TripAdvisor is, but it's probably used by more and more people. So something to be concerned about and checking in on. Let's go to the next slide, and we're almost done. Blogs and news. Let's go to the next one. So Celtic Lodge does have a blog and is regularly providing content. As you can see, I just took this screen capture this morning, and this post was posted on March 15th. So they're fairly active in providing more content out there. So that's good to see. Let's go to the next slide. This is a news article, and it's a press release that Celtic Lodge developed. That they're hosting a mining society, and they submitted it via a service called PR Web. Now, PR Web is a service that you pay for. So there are services, may not be as great as distributing content as PR Web, but there are other services that are no cost that you could access. But that's just another way to create content and get it out there online. Let's go to the next slide. And when we went through the Google results on page 1 near the bottom, we saw that there was a link to this result. That the Cape Breton Post had an article, New General Manager for Celtic Lodge. So this also forms part of your online presence if there are any news items about you. Let's go to the next slide. And when there are news items, sometimes bloggers will pick them up, or sometimes bloggers will write their own content. So this is a blog post that I found where he basically talked about the new general manager coming to Celtic Lodge and got the content from the Cape Breton Post. Let's go to the next slide. Here's one in Canadian Living, their online website, but if you do a search, you can find that there's a recipe from the Celtic Lodge, roast turkey with cranberry savory stuffing. So that's something that I think anybody interested in food and seeing that about Celtic Lodge would come away with a good impression. Let's go to the next slide. And here's that one that I mentioned earlier that kind of has the mixed message. You can't really control it, and you're probably happy that there's a politician that is advocating for more support. But these sorts of things are out there, and you can't really control it. You just have to put the best face on your presence for what you can control. So let's go to the next slide, and this is the second to last one. So a couple of tips I just want to leave you with. Number one, take stock of your presence. Take a look at how your website looks when it's being viewed by a mobile, by smartphone, iPhone, BlackBerry. Take a look at how it looks when people view it on different operating systems, Internet Explorer, Firefox, or Safari, older computers versus newer computers. Just understand what the customers are seeing when they're going to your website. Social media. If you don't have a Facebook page, that's something that might make sense for your business. It doesn't necessarily make sense for every business, but if you're in the tourism industry, as I know many of you are, that's something that you definitely should look into. You may also want to look at Twitter, Flickr, YouTube. All of these things take time, but if you do spend the time in them, it can be an investment that can really come back to you. Number two, develop a presence on directory and location-based sites. If you don't have a presence on Google Places, it only takes a few minutes really to set that up. I'd encourage you to do that. Look at Yelp. That's a free service. You can set up a presence there, provide another way that people can find you. Yellow Pages, as I mentioned, that's something that does cost a bit of money, but Yellow Pages does usually have their content optimized for search engines, and so people may find you through there. So it's something to take a look at. Number three, listen to the conversations. Set up your operation on Google Alerts to find out what's being said about you. And like I said, maybe do that for your competition too, to find out what's being said about them. If you are active in Twitter or Facebook, you might want to look at setting up a Hootsuite account or TweetDeck. We won't get into how to do that here, but I'm sure that there are folks that can help you with that. Just find out what's being said, listen to the conversations, and engage in them. I find that there's a lot of people using social media that are all about pushing out their content, and they're not really listening to what people are saying. For example, if somebody's talking about whale watching, if you're on Hootsuite and you can follow what people are saying about whale watching, you might be able to jump in and say, I have an accommodation. There's a whale watching operator right down the road. Love for you to come and visit us. Those sorts of things. So engage in those conversations. Number four, I'd encourage you to respond to critiques, good and bad. Be diplomatic about it, as we discussed, and just provide your side of the story. And follow up. If somebody has an experience that they've been very critical of, and you can address that experience and improve that experience going forward, you may want to drop them a line once you've addressed it, and just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that thank you for your comment. We've acted. We've addressed your concern, and we'd love for you to come back and visit us again. Sorts of things like that can really show that you're really positive and responding to listening to people. And the other thing is creating content, blogs, social media. The more content you create, I think a blog is fantastic, because the more content you create, the more positive comment that's going to be out there when people searching Google. For example, that comment about the PC party commented on Google. It's on page 2 right now. If Celtic Lodge put a number of blog posts out there that speak to include the Celtic Lodge, they're optimized to come up for those search terms. Eventually, any negative comments will be pushed further down in the search results. So the more you're creating content, the more control you have that when customers are looking for you, they're going to find out only good things. So let's go to the final slide. And I just wanted to thank you all for listening. I know that was a lot to go through and fairly fast-paced, but I believe we have some time for some questions, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Terry, for an excellent presentation. I have one question, Terry. I think it was one of your first slides. You mentioned under Google search engines that there was a map and also some photos of the Celtic Lodge, and you said that doesn't always happen every time you do a Google search. How can you get the map up and those photos of your facility?
Yeah, and that's actually something that I neglected to say as we were going through. But when you claim your Google Places profile for a business, if you go in Google Places and update the information, then when people are searching, that information will come up in the search results, and so they can see the map, they can see some photos of your site. There will be other reviews that could come up. So that's why I think it's important to ensure that.
Well, yeah, definitely, I agree too. Yeah. Well, we're going to, before we move on, I would like to thank Terry on behalf of the municipality of Victoria County for a great presentation today and for helping us again prepare for this upcoming 2012 tourism season. And of course, I'd like to thank our technical people, Donna and Annette, with VC Caps, who's also an important partner in this webinar series, and of course the audience for joining us today and taking advantage of this webinar. The next webinar in our series, which will be our final one in March, will be Destination Cape Breton partnerships and programs that the tourism industry can take advantage of to help promote their business in their area for the 2012 season. And that takes place on March 29th. That's a Thursday at lunchtime, and our presenter is Mr. Dan Coffin, Director of Marketing of Destination Cape Breton Association. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Recording of today's session will be available usually an hour or two after this webinar, and a link will be sent to you by email. When you leave this session, a short survey will open in a new window on your screen. Please take a few seconds and fill out how we did today. On behalf of the county and VC Caps and our presenter, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today and hope that we'll see you on March 29th. Thank you and goodbye.